Welcome to The Female Voice, the podcast where we champion amazing female founders and people who support the female founder ecosystem. This week, I'm delighted to have Danielle Brand join us in the studio. When you see a story online and it instantly shocks you and makes you kind of think about the reason why females set up businesses in the first place. Statistically, female-led businesses are purpose-led. So they're created because women have been through something in their past. They are trying to solve a problem either for themselves or to stop things or to make an impact for people in the future. I was delighted that Danielle accepted my invitation to join us today. Her story is really quite traumatic, but the fact that she's pivoted her experiences and turned it into a business to help children, to stop them and educate them and empower them really is such an impactful story. So I'm delighted to welcome Danielle to the show this morning. Danielle, if you would be happy to share your experiences and how you've pivoted that into becoming a female founder in your own right, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, great. Like you say, it isn't a story that I suppose it is a little bit traumatic. So yeah, there's a little bit of a red flag before we start. Initially, I was a qualified primary school teacher and loved working with children. And to cut a really long story short, during COVID, we sort of realised that there was a real big gap between the social and emotional progression that children would normally make, as well as the academic. But because the social and emotional gap was so wide, the academic gap wasn't it. We were unable to fill it as well as we would normally. So initially, that's where my journey started on supporting children. But I came out of teaching because I realised that I was a traumatised teacher teaching traumatised children. So, and without any sort of trauma training or understanding of why those behaviours are occurring. And the reason behind that is because as a child, I went through quite a long period of sexual abuse. And I think that that's what made me a better teacher, in the sense of I could empathise with our children that had experienced, or I was able to see very clearly the children that had been through experiences and what that behaviour was then communicating. However, going back to the social emotional gap in COVID, we didn't have the capacity in schools to be able to fill those gaps, and the teachers also didn't have, for want of a better word, the awareness and the ability to be able to fill that gap. And as an education system, it's not something that we sort of focus on. So I came out of education thinking there's a huge gap where teachers, actually, their knowledge is so little around it. It's so low because, for example, when we are training to be teachers, we have 1 hour, maybe an afternoon, on behaviour of children. So to actually understand any sort of psychology or anything behind why children are communicating through or how children are communicating through those behaviours is really difficult for teachers, because they've just never had that input. As I went through my own self-healing journey, I've done a lot of learning, let's say, around why I was feeling the way that I was feeling as a child and how to support myself. And every time I learned something new, I kept thinking that if we'd have had this in education, if we'd have had this as a teacher, or if I'd have had it, I'd have run this differently, I'd have done this differently. And I knew that I was a teacher that already had that baseline of empathy. So there was just something that made me go, hold on, our teachers need to know this. So I started writing my CPD program, which is about I take into schools and deliver to teachers, and it's called Looking Beyond the Behaviour. And then what has developed from that is we've got a system of where we go in and we support teachers and we support their mental health, but we also support the journey. So it's about not just providing the schools with the information, but it's about supporting them through it. And then I also have mentors that go into school and do one-to-ones with children. So it's about building that community of awareness around every single child as to what that child is communicating, because if us not just us, but the educators understand what's going on, the parents understand what's going on, the mentor understands what's going on, and the child is taught ways to be able to emotionally express themselves better than just negative behaviours, we're able to make a massive impact on the school life. I don't know if, in a nutshell, if that sort of explains what we're doing or whether I've gone deep enough there, Roxanne. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. I think that gives a kind of a really broad background about why you do what you do and what you're trying to achieve with the business, which is brilliant. So statistically, there's lots of talk at the moment about role modeling for women in particular, and the fact that children perhaps don't always have kind of the role models to look up to. Do you feel like, obviously, being a woman going into the schools and working with children, perhaps you're giving them kind of a little bit alongside the work that you're doing, kind of the inspiration and the hope that they can see this woman who's out there, she's trying to make a difference and she's helping the impact of the work that you're doing? Do you think, would you consider yourself a role model
Yeah,
within
I think
the
what we
ecosystem?
yeah, I think that what myself and also my mentors that we're putting in, which are all at the moment women, and they've all been through some experiences of themselves, what we are able to do for children now and essentially the future of today is provide them with that resource of safety and that person that's actually there listening to their voice and then giving them strategies in order to help them deal with their emotions. And I think what we tend to do is build a really solid foundation and relationship with children. Actually, then they're going forward and using the same language. They're using even they're looking forward to our sessions, but they are telling parents, well, actually, Danielle speaks like this, or my mentor says that this is why this is happening. And we are mentors. We're not therapists. We are mentors that support the children through their emotional well-being. That is what it is all about. It's about giving them the language and the emotional intelligence in order to be able to go, right, I understand now why that behaviour is happening, what's happening in my brain. And more often than not, especially with teenagers, the teenagers that we work with, they're saying like, so am I normal? And we're always like, yes, this is normal. You are expressing yourself in a way that is normal. And the reason that these behaviours are then happening after that is because you don't have the ability or the capacity to understand that journey and then have another tool or strategy to be able to do next. You just don't know what to do next. And that's what we are there for. So I think we are sort of, I don't know whether inspirational is the right word. I've never sort of thought about it like that. But I think what we are to these children is a way of them being able to express themselves really, really honestly and know that they're not going to be judged.
Yeah, I think that's such an important life skill in general, the ability to express, to not, I suppose to express, but to have your feelings validated in some way as well. And I think that's a massive, in my experience, a massive gap, particularly in the business community, maybe my generation in particular, kind of mid 40s, because we never had that in school. You used to, like, if you get over, even now you still get, I get overwhelmed with my feelings and my emotions sometimes. But I think having, if someone had sat me down when I was younger and said, well, that's okay, this is how you're going to deal with that, and especially being a business owners as well, having someone to take the time and say mentor you through how to process those feelings and how to handle that, but to know that it's normal, and then you can use those skills throughout the rest of your life, really.
Yeah.
Such an important, I think, such an important way of, like you say, of managing and learning how to cope with things that you're feeling, and actually that is okay.
Yeah, yeah. And we
Yeah.
do that with teachers as well. So we also, well, I do teacher supervision. So some of the teachers that we work with and the heads will come and have the same sort of facilitation, that if you want to call it that, with us, because so that they don't go down that journey of overwhelm as well and then end up having time off. So they're able to go, right, this is happening in class and this is how I'm feeling, or a lot of the time it's this is happening at home and this is how I'm feeling and this is how now I'm being tipped over the edge. And when you're able to break that down, and essentially spend some time listening to what's going on, they've got that outlet as well. And it is a lot about being validated, acknowledged, and giving them some tools and strategies, again, even as adults, to go, this is how I'm going to deal with it.
Do you find that the children are more responsive than the adults? have you ever come across situations where the adults have kind of put some barriers up?
So not at the base level. So when I'm sort of asking teachers to change some language, they do come and they'll say, right, I don't know what to do with this. And a lot of it is like reframing language, try this in the classroom, that sort of thing. Yet they're all really, really, really open to it. Um, some of the SLTs, especially in secondary school, are like, if I do that with one child, I'm going to have to do that with another, and there's 1,000 children in this school. Um, so there is a little bit of reluctance, if you it's not that they're not acknowledging what I'm saying, but it's reluctance because they don't know how to do that across the really broad spectrum. So there is it's almost like a culture shift that sort of needs to happen in order for SLT to be able to say, because actually it's not about not punishing the child, or it's not about not having consequences. It's about the learning that discipline. That's what it is. It's about learning a discipline, and the child needs to learn the discipline, and that once they can control and have self-control and impulse control and understand what things are that behavior then can change. But it's about having the staff having the to be able to give them that space to change. And
Yeah,
sometimes, especially in secondary school, there is a bit of hierarchy where the staff almost go, but we should be here. This is obviously like a metaphor. They're sort of saying that we should be here and the children should be here. But what's happening there is it's just a constant battle. Whereas actually, if they built that relationship and allowed some room for them to acknowledge that child as an individual, there is room for shift. It's a little bit of two steps forward, one step back at the moment, especially in secondary schools, because there are so many children. In primary school, they do usually, actually every school so far, have been really, really open to the support. Every parent has been on board because we bring the parents in, and it's not just about this is what we can do for your child and this is what school are doing for your child. It's about sort of what is that parent struggling with as well? Can we help there just by even giving them some tools? And then if it's the same tools for everybody and everybody's doing the same thing, the child sort of goes, okay, this is consistency. This is how we should be doing things, and this is what everybody's singing from the same hymn sheet. What the only other reluctance that I sort of have met is it's not often, but trying to support some staff through theirs as well. More often than not, they are really open to it, but there has been some occasions where they haven't. But I think that can be a society and a cultural thing as well, and it's about that shift that everybody sort of it's not normal for people to acknowledge your feelings. Does that make
yeah,
sense?
yeah. It does. It does. Yeah. Do you think I mean, have you obviously the work that we do specifically with women? So the finance industry and the business industry, really in general, is heavily male dominated. Do you think that obviously the industry that you're in? Do you think it's predominantly female dominated, or is there so many in the industry that are doing a great job as well?
So there is some really really great male role models in schools, I think, and especially, but you tend to see them in secondary schools. You don't tend to see them as much in primary schools. There are some, but it's very much female dominated. And in secondary schools, I would say that the male role model in secondary schools, they almost feel like they have to play a certain role. Does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of the dominating male
Yeah,
within the arena.
yeah.
Do you think from a children's perspective, so looking at the two different role models, do you think that that has an impact? Do you feel like the boys within the schools are more likely to be more open with the men, and the girls are more likely to be more open with you? Is that something you've come across?
So I think that the role models that I mean I have only the women that work for me at the moment, but and I would like to open this up because there are males that have been through negative experiences as well, and they would be great talking to boys. I do work with another organisation that does group work with boys that are going essentially down the wrong path, but they don't do one-to-ones. And though they as role models are incredible because they're able to meet those boys where they are at. But then I think sometimes in order to answer your question, the role models that are in schools at the moment, some are great. So I know a couple that are absolutely great, and they know that there are children in their school that need that male role model and need that, almost like, this is what a man should behave like, this is how I should be treated, or this is how, because there's not a lot of that goes on. Whereas in secondary schools, there is more male teachers, but I do think that's they feel that there's a bit of a power hierarchy as well. And I'm not saying that, I don't want to be really, really negative, because it's not negative. There's some absolutely incredible teaching staff, but I do see that divide you're sort of saying. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. I see it in the finance industry in particular. I see it all the time. Whilst there are some really great men who do fantastic work, there are a proportion of them that kind of, because they're coming maybe to the end of their career journey, that's how they've done that job for 30 years. So regardless of maybe in a more modern way of doing things, that's how they're going to continue to do it. And I think kind of the tools and the ability to maybe shift perception or kind of open your mind really to different ways of doing things and different ways in handling with things. So that's a lot of the conversations that we have all the time, saying, look, if you're dealing with a female-owned business in particular, perhaps you do need to apply a different kind of lens or filter, because women, they are naturally more relationship-based. They're going to be a bit more hesitant in sharing their hopes and dreams with somebody that they don't particularly know. It's kind of layering all those things up into the conversation. So I definitely think there's some synergies across the two sectors. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. But that is essentially, you've summed it up in a nutshell, that there are some that think this is how I've always done it, and this is how it used to work, and this is how it should still work. But actually the world has changed, and the society's changed, and our children's world has changed. It's opened up so much bigger to what it used to be, that actually we do need to adapt, and we do need to start accepting that our children are very much more self-aware, or very more aware of what's going on in the world than they used to be. So because of that, we do need to allow them some space. We do need to start teaching them that emotional intellect. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have done years ago. We should have done. That's the gap where when I actually disclosed what was happening to me at secondary school, and it was completely swept under the rug and nothing was done about it. And actually, that's what brings me to when I'm working in secondary schools, because I am a qualified primary school teacher. There's a lot of that still not as bad, because we do have child protection and safeguard and all sorts, but there is still a lot of the language there that was used back when I was younger that's still used now, in the sense of they're just attention seeking, or that one's used quite a lot, or do you think they're being honest, or do you think that, and there's a lot of that, like, questioning the child. And my response is always, even if this isn't an honest story, let's say, there's something behind it, because why does that child need to tell you that? Why does that child need that? They feel that need for that connection. They're not attention seeking. It's the fact they're trying to find some connection from an adult, from a caring adult, from a safe resource that they actually possibly don't have at home. And that's the lens that we need to be looking through things at. And it's really difficult to shift that mindset. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It really does. Yeah. So if you had a magic wand, and the education system out there, we were fortunate enough that they were listening to this, what would you like to happen? Would you like this service to be available in every school across the UK?
I think every single teacher should have the awareness of this from being trained to be a teacher. And that is, they should be at university. When you train to be a teacher, you should have consistent input on what a child is communicating in their behaviour. It should be there from at the baseline. But I think it should be there also as well for anybody that works with children, social workers, people that work in football academies, anybody that works with children should be able to spot these red flags, and it not just be that kid's naughty. They should have this, that should be the baseline. But I would also like a mentor to be in every single school as well, so that child that is experiencing something has a safe point of contact every single day. Whereas at the moment, I'm up myself or my mentors are going into our schools 1 day a week.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so important. I hear we have conversations with women and male business owners where they've got children in school, and whilst obviously the curriculum is set and everybody knows this is what you have to do, there's so much more that could be done outside of kind of the standard lessons. For example, the work that you do, we always try and champion like financial education. Like kids don't go to school and they don't learn how credit cards work. They don't learn how to manage a household budget. They don't learn how to do any of the day-to-day stuff that we do as as a family in like unit. And I think there's so much more that could be done in education across such a huge spectrum of different areas. And I think the work that you're doing is so amazing. So hopefully, if we can use this platform to try and raise awareness of your business and everything that you're doing, I think that's fantastic.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
There is. It is like you say, it's those simple things that your children come home and they almost don't understand how much. Like you go your food shopping, they don't understand how much that costs, or it's the very basics of things, and then the emotional side that comes alongside all of those things while you're juggling your work and your family life and everything else. We need to be able to process those as well. And so there's a lot of things that I think the very, very basics that we should be introducing to our children from an early age.
Do you think that, obviously, as a female business owner yourself in your own right, do you find it a struggle to manage, obviously, running the business, delivering the work that you deliver, and managing everything else that you have going on as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like one of the hardest things to balance because when I set out to sort of do what I'm doing, I never intended to do this full time because I wanted to still be able to take my children to school and pick them up from school. I still want to be that parent that is there at every single activity that I can be. And because I am a business owner, I can juggle it. But because the need is so great, I am finding that I'm working every school day. So usually between 9 and 3, I am able to juggle that. I am more often than not at school pickups. Or my husband does like the drop offs. We are still doing it, but the juggle to still be that parent and be there at home time for me it's difficult because that I see hundreds of other children that actually need me, but I still want to be there for my children. And I always think my children are really little, but I always think that when they come home from school, they need me there to have that emotional outlet before they then can move on to do anything else. It's just important, isn't it?
It is so important. I mean, my little boy is 6 now, and he sees how hard um, running this business is, and he knows that mummy can't always be available to pick him up from school. I had to miss sports day last week because I had meetings, and if I've got to go to London, I'm not going to be back till maybe 10 o'clock at night. So there's all these different things, and I think again it comes back to the role modeling, doesn't it? If children can see their parents managing a business and managing a household and juggling everything else and the responsibilities of having a family, I think again it comes back into the kind of the inspirational, well, mummy or daddy can do that, so maybe I could have the option to do that in the future as well.
Yeah, definitely. And my children know what I do. My oldest actually is 8, but he says, "Mummy helps children's brains. Mummy helps children feel better." And the fact that he can say that, I just think it means so much because he knows when I'm busy that I'm actually helping somebody else. Does that make sense?
And that's such a lovely perspective from a child as well. I mean, so that's kind of, he perceives that as your superpower, doesn't he? You can help other
Yeah.
children feel better. That's really impactful, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely is. And he just keeps saying, "Will you come into my school? I want you to help at my school." And there's he sees me going into different schools and taking different things in. They see me every day. Why are you packing that in your bag? What's that for? What are you going to use this for? So they are really interested, and they do know like, when I am when I it's, it isn't a lot because I do juggle that I am there for them a lot because that for me is my priority because I want to be there for my own children as well as the others. But when they know that I'm not going to be there for whatever reason, they know that I'm supporting somebody else. But they do it is is still a juggle because you've got family life, you've got your finances, you're trying to get your children to every club or whatever else they're doing, you whilst managing a business. And we've just been on holiday and I had to take an afternoon where I had to go and manage, I was speaking to a head teacher and a parent and, manage all of that. I mean, it's just part of the job, and the children understand why I'm doing it, but they do see it as well. They see that mummy is working. So, and when I'm on my phone, are you working, mummy, or can we do this? And I'm like, let me just finish this and then we'll do that together. I am
Yes.
juggling it still because, and like I say, I never expected it to be full time, but it is, and it's the children are adapting as we grow, really.
Yeah, I think it's so important that they can see obviously how hard you're working and the difference that you're impacting other children as well. I think it's fantastic. So well done, you. If you had if you were able to offer a piece of advice to anybody out there listening that perhaps wants to start their own business, what would you share with them?
I think just the biggest thing that I always had imposter syndrome a little bit, but I think the biggest thing is just do it. Just if it's your passion and it's something that you truly believe in, just do it. Like you don't have to have any expectations. Just I think where, like I say, where I threw myself into it, imagining that I would just be doing a few hours a week here and there. If you're passionate about something and you truly believe that it's going to make a difference, you've just got to start, haven't you? I think the biggest thing is just ignore the imposter syndrome and just start, because you've got that idea or that passion for a reason.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's brilliant advice. And you see that all the time on places like LinkedIn saying there's never going to be the perfect time. You're never going to have the perfect situation. You're never going to have enough money. You're never going to have, nothing's going to be perfect all of the time. So if you want to do it, just start now.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
definitely. I think that, like you say, you can't. There's never a right time to do it, so just do it. Because, and even if you start really, really small and you grow over time, if you're passionate about it, you've got that there for a reason.
exactly. That's brilliant advice. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope everybody out there listening has been inspired by what you've shared. And please like, subscribe, and share and follow. As always, use this platform to promote the amazing female businesses that we work with. And thank you for listening.